Hi, this is Carol Rose Atkinson, the president of iCamp. I'm here to introduce today Dr. Maxine Starr, uh,
Hey.
Langdon Starr,
Yeah.
who's going to be presenting for us on Friday, 9 o'clock in San Bernardino for iCamp. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Can you tell us who you are?
So my name is Dr. Starr. That's what I go by. But it depends on which lens you're looking at me from. So I've been in private practice since I got licensed, which was all the way back in 2012. And I've been in the Rancho Cucamonga area like ever since. And I specialize in basically 2 to 3 areas. The first one, like my dissertation, was on adolescent development and sort of that juxtaposition. I wanted to understand, because I have a passion for working with teens, and I just couldn't understand, like every time I went somewhere, I would say, oh, I work with teens, and people would run the other way. So I wanted to find out what that was about. So that was the core of my dissertation work. And I don't know, I've always had a passion for, women-owned business. That's what I have with my mom. She's actually in a close field to us, in a related field. So I grew up being the guinea pig for her in speech language pathology, and decided that I didn't want to do that, but that I'd still like to help people, and I like kids. And so we're very kid friendly over there in Sunflower Therapies. We've been in business for 4 years. So that's kind of my baby. I love working with like teens, young adults, and also women, and self-care. So that's a big one for me. And yeah, I kind of do everything right now. I wear many hats. I've taught for years in the MFT program, in the ABA program at National, at Brandman for years, like I'm saying, like 7 years. So I'm used to like getting up in front of people. It's not a problem for me. I love to engage the audience, really help people with their development, more specifically with therapists and their development. So if that makes sense, I wrote like that into my dissertation, and that's what I'm hoping to bring light into as well, to talk with therapists about their own development, because we can't ignore like what's in the room for us. So
Are you serious? Like we're supposed to figure out what's with us? I mean, how many therapists haven't done their own darn work? They have to do it through school sometimes, but not all the time.
Yeah.
I worked with Brandman. I've had practicum students that have helped get their get through their program and get their hours. And I understand, teens. Teens are definitely, that's something I've worked with quite a bit myself. And now we specialize in that as well. So
must be kindred souls, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a therapist out there I don't have something going on with. But the self-care thing, also, that's right now. I was just telling you that's what our subject matter is, that our theme this week for the company is, we're kind of posting all on social media with that. But self-care is really, really important. And yet we miss it ourselves.
Yep. Yeah.
Therapists can be the worst. I mean, doctors and therapists and the people in the helping field.
We're often the last in the totem pole, and now, as you probably know, we've accelerated that stress level. Not to say that first responders have a very tough job, but so do we, and we are often the people who hear about it and can therefore go on to develop sort of that vicarious pain in addition to. So I'm very cognizant of that, and I hope to bring that talk, because I was just given a topic and then told to go with it. So I'm putting my spin on motivational interviewing. Okay.
Yeah, well, motivational interviewing is great, and the self-care thing, it's just so important, and so many of us don't take care of our needs. It's funny, you were mentioning about what you were saying about that we're getting that vicarious kind of secondary trauma, or however that works. I have a functional doctor, because I've gone through my own health issues, and he talks about my job as something that I have to be cognizant about, because even though I don't tend to get secondary trauma, it still goes to the cells of my body.
Yep.
So it's still there. It's still affecting my body in one way or another, whether or not I admit, up here, my logic, my stubbornness that doesn't want to admit that, but it's still going there, right?
Oh, definitely. I think we can experience it in many different ways. And that's why I help people to not feel guilt or shame about, hi, doggy.
My self-care.
Yeah.
She comes to work with me.
I was very happy because I work in a school setting, and I was very happy to have like this Monday off. I just took it off completely because I needed to do things, and I think that it's best because then you come back and you're better oriented at helping those because you've helped yourself, right? So I try to help
me.
Yeah, I try to help other people come to that same conclusion.
Well, I mean, if we're in private practice, or if we're, depending upon where we're working, I have always chosen to work a 3-day week. So Monday always is my day off, and Friday always is my day off. But, I kind of work on those days. It's just not
as intense.
Especially not in the office. I can just have flexibility. That is another way that I do self-care. So tell me about what you're going to speak about, because your topic is interesting. I'm kind of guessing who gave you the topic, but what is it you are going to be speaking about? Because this is interesting.
Sure thing. So it has to do with, of course, motivational interviewing, but I feel like a lot of people get that, in whether it's through continuing education or what have you. I think we've heard that term a million times. Yeah. But so something, because I don't like to talk too much about me, but it is about me right now, so I will relish in that for a second. And so my training is a bit different just because I went on to get my doctorate, right? And so not a lot of people, I think, in our field, if you compare the number of people who went on to do that just because they wanted to, create more stress in their life. No, I'm just kidding.
To some degree.
I looked at the, kind of the what was out there in terms of how I compare, let's say, to other therapists, and something to, give myself a little bit of edge. So it kind of does, because my talk is really called At the Intersection of Depth Psychology. So people are like, okay, what is that? And so that's what I got my PhD in. And it's definitely something that has helped me. And so I want to bring it, maybe to people that don't know too much about it. So what it is it helps to, because I feel like now more than ever, whether, I don't care what setting you're working in, whether it's an agency or a private practice or a school or a hospital, right? You still have to be collaborative. And you have to be willing to be integrative, in the sense, not to say that your treatment needs to be, but just that you yourself as a professional, right? Mm-hmm. Treatment's not one-dimensional. You can't work in a vacuum, right? So a lot of times there's other people that are working alongside you. And same thing with the depth psychology. So what it does is it broadens the horizons of what we would consider the normal realm of westernized psychology, which could include things like the brain and westernized science and the scientific method, and cognitive behavioral therapy, and is this measurable, and motivational interviewing comes from that kind of school of thought where it was often used with substance abuse and more measurable therapies. And so my aim of this presentation is to kind of provide perhaps an alternative lens, just as in depth psychology we look at things like the unconscious and people's dreams and unspoken desires and unconscious motivation, philosophy, mythology, religion, theology, just things that spheres of influence, let's say, that maybe others haven't considered before. So that's really nice to be able to have that lens. So I hope to bring that to motivational interviewing.
Right. I mean, I learned that as an evidence-based practice when I was doing community behavioral health. But I have 38 years background in 12-step recovery and drug addiction. So, I mean, it's always around there, doing the motivational interviewing and helping them to, to not to fight their resistance, but to kind of join them with that, right?
Yeah, and to come to their own conclusion. So I was kind of like reading about motivational interviewing and the research behind it because, hey, what kind of doctor would I be if I didn't do my homework before coming to present to IE Camp? So I did that, and I looked at what's called hermeneutics, and I don't know how much people are familiar with that, but I'm going to.
I'm not, so explain it to me.
So hermeneutics is a research methodology, of course, housed in the qualitative aspect. So again, motivational interviewing, you said evidence-based. So when we think evidence-based, we think more quantitative data. How many people were actually motivated to complete a certain goal, etc. How many people did you get to, stop smoking or stop drinking or whatever the goal may be. But qualitative methodology looks at the subjective experience because in therapy, we can't ignore ourselves in the room. And that's what I really like about hermeneutics is that it is your own subjective reality and how you interpret what is being presented to you. And so I feel like a lot of times that is missing because depth psychology looks at holds and what is missing and what isn't being said, and how can we really take that methodology and how we're interpreting, because whether or not we're saying anything, right, we're still in here thinking about what the patient or client is saying, thinking about our own experience and how we relate, even whether or not we verbalize it or not. So I feel like that is a good entry point, a good perspective, a good lens, if you will, to think about applying it to motivational interviewing. So how can we do that while still preserving the practitioner and showing up to the therapy like as our best selves, like mentally and otherwise.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that we're telling like the secret behind the magic trick or something, like, we're actually having dialogue in our head while we're talking to the client, but yeah, that self-talk is going on, and, who knows what we're telling ourselves.
Right. And that's, I think, the struggle that we go through as clinicians, and I really like to bring that to light. And so I recently just started, it took me a long time because I wanted to be sure that I was ready, but I've now accepted a contract supervisor position. I'm doing that, starting to do that. And
Where's that at?
Oh, just it's a small little agency in San Bernardino that employs behaviorists and some associates. So I have one right now, and that's kind of my official toe in the water. I've done unofficial, but this is like my first, real. And so I think the difference now is that I really want to emphasize that, like the clinician in the room, who are you? So it doesn't matter if you're just starting out as a clinician or like if you've been doing it for years. I mean, I'm still obviously learning. I've been doing it for, like mid-year range, I suppose, getting up there, but definitely still have a lot to learn, I think, as we all do. And I think it's important to be able to reflect and to sort out what that inner dialogue is and how maybe we could use it instead of just, okay, well, I'm going to keep that to myself, and then you forget because you have 5 other appointments or you go off and do something else. How can we use that to not only inform the client, but be mindful of what we need, because we may also be going through human experience at the same time that we're helping others with their human experience.
I'm thinking of, I've had situations where I found out really bad news 5 seconds before I walk in with the client, and then no time to process, got to shove it down and, give that client my complete attention. I've had deaths, that I've seen moments before sessions, and, in some way it kind of gets you through that hour to focus on something else. But I also, because I have 9 staff members, I am very clear with my staff about not being in burnout.
Mm-hmm.
It is so important. Like if when you work in an agency, you get overworked.
I know.
And, and so I'm like,
I'm
I'm not going to let them do that. And when they come in, they're like, I want to do like 25, 30 appointments. I'm like, no, like we really need to talk about this and figure this out so that you are the best you in that room.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember feeling like that when I was an intern and back in my practicum days, like, I just got to get the hours.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want you to burn out in the process.
Right. Or even, so you say you do them all, and then, because I've seen it happen, like with people, even in my cohort, I went to Chapman, and so maybe half end up actually sticking with the profession, and half say, yeah, no, not for me. And that's fine, but it's just something to know as well. Like, we have to do what is best for us, not just because, I don't think a lot of us necessarily go into it for the money or anything like that, but
Probably shouldn't, but
right, you have to keep a roof over your head, but you can't be like,
mm-hmm.
blind to what you need, like what your internal threshold may be. And same thing with, as you're hearing client little, because that's what we do, right? We're looking for hooks and opportunities. When we hear those hooks or presenting issues, to be able to understand where our mind goes in addition to where the patient's mind goes, and how do those intersect or connect.
Yeah. I was just thinking about self-care. I mean, one of the things I do, and I just happen to have this right here, is there's my green beans. So I food prep. It's all my food is online. I put it out there because that's one of the things that I do to manage my health. And that is putting us first, putting the oxygen on ourselves first, right?
Yep.
But what other things besides that are you going to bring up? I mean, what kinds of self-care? Is it just with the mind, or where do you go with this in the presentation?
So that's a great question. So I actually did a similar sort of symposium, if you will, for the educators, because the educators are in the same boat, maybe not as severely, but certainly we see it. We know that there's a teacher shortage for a reason. It's not just financial, but financial is one of the areas that a lot of people maybe fail to realize that it is an area of need for self-care. So it's more of a integrative approach there, and I'll be talking about those different spheres of self-care. And I think that therapists know the word. It's not like that, because I presented
They teach it.
Yeah, it's a buzzword, but and we see it outside of our profession, which is why it's so great to get that reality check, because I've gone to like conferences for speech and language pathologists and talked to them about the concept, and they never learn it. And yet they have caseloads of 50, 60, 70, 80 children in the school setting that they have to go service every week. And tell me that's not burning out, right? And so you have to think about it in terms of more of a Venn diagram rather than, necessarily like a thing that you do. It's not a thing that you do. It's more of a routine. And just like life, you may not have all cylinders firing at the same time. But I think a lot of people feel like, okay, I couldn't incorporate everything, so therefore I'm a failure, or I just suck at it.
A shame cycle. I love it. We always go down to, shoot, I'm imperfect. Yeah, because you're human. But it feels like people are always, to some degree, the helping fields, the nurses, the doctors, they're not learning these things, how to take care of themselves. They're too busy taking care of everybody else, even moms, right?
Right. And so, yeah, and like, they are not told how to say no.
I just taught that in my last session.
Yeah, so not just mental, of course, but there'll be other spheres that I'll be talking about. I don't want to give them all away right now. Right. I have boundaries on my boundaries. I don't want to give them all right now, because you'll have to come and see.
Yeah, so it's a teaser. This is a teaser to bring you guys in. So I did want to mention that, the training is this Friday. Normally it's the following Friday. And that's why we're doing this now, so we can get whoever is not aware of it, that we moved up 1 week and that we would love them to register. I will get the link up there as soon as we're done.
Yeah, it was partially my fault too, to be honest, because they were asking if I could, and unfortunately, I will be out because my mother is receiving the highest honor of the National Speech and Hearing Association, which is the honors of their association. So that's why I'll be gone. So unfortunately, and I think a lot of people may be gone too because of Thanksgiving and such. So I'm happy to do it earlier so that we can all hopefully connect.
Right. Well, that's amazing. What a great role model. I was just thinking, I raised 3 kids, and they had to listen to their therapist mom as they were growing up, and they all sound like little therapists now. I mean, they're not little anymore. They're 20, 22, 24, but they all kind of, you get that to some degree when you're being raised by a parent that's become cognizant of how to be the best parent.
Oh yeah,
that you do it.
definitely. Well, I scared her because I didn't talk for 2.5 years, but that's another story.
Yeah, I had one of those. And usually they're super smart.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, is that an Einstein thing? Like, you not talk till later?
I said, I'm just observing everything, Mom. I'm taking these eyes and I'm seeing everything you're doing. And hey, it's helped me in the work, seriously, because I will consider what I'm going to say. I'm feeling the client out. I'm feeling my body in the session and everything like that, and seeing, should I say this or not based on what I'm seeing.
It's so funny. My son said, "Mommy, Daddy, ball." And then the next month he said whole paragraphs with "actually" as part of the word, part of the sentence. I'm like, okay, so, and I know he was observing.
So you don't have to worry.
And he has a physics degree now. So clearly, he was smart, but I never worried about that, but some people can worry about those things.
Oh yeah, because it's the cornerstone to what your belief is, and so that's really what, like, there's no wrong answer in self-care, and there's no wrong answer in hermeneutics, because it's like totally where your head goes. And so I look forward to bringing that methodology and what I've taken out of my doctoral program over at Pacifica. It was a great time. It was a great school. It was totally worth the
extra
the studiousness that I had to do.
Yeah.
So I was working at an agency full time while I went to school 1 week in a month, and I did that for 3 years. So I understand that. I empathize with the agency life, and I think that more of this is needed, as you said, because it can be very taxing on a person.
Can I ask you to give out your contact information, and then I can put it down under the comments later?
Yeah, sure. So Dr. Maxine Starr, and website is www.sunflower, like the sunflower, and then hyphen therapies, so plural, THERAPIS.com. We just got it redone. We got a nice facelift.
That's fun.
Happy to say, after it only took 4 years, because
I love designing. So fun.
I did the first one myself.
Don't we all?
I'm not
on Word.
There, but I highly recommend that as a second step to people. So do that. And my phone number is 909-321-2012. And I'm at extension 1, but I also pick up our main line, which is 0, because it depends on what people are looking for. Sometimes they're looking for both speech language pathology and counseling, just because the two are related. Oftentimes I work with our speech pathologists here at the high school, because a lot of students struggle with like social pragmatics or social problem solving. And so together we try to come up with the best plan of action. But at our business, it's kind of separated so that you could talk to the appropriate professional. And then my email is Dr. Starr, all spelled out, DoctorStarr @sunflower-therapies.com.
Great. And you're in Rancho. Is it on Haven?
I am on Haven. We are on Haven and 6th.
Great.
Right across from the new Marriott hotel that they just built.
Oh, I must have missed that. I better drive down there. I did see the new foodie place over there.
Yes, we're 2 blocks from that. So
That,
that's really cool because then on those nights, I'm like, "Ooh, which place can we try?" Like,
I
that's
know. I've been waiting for that to open for a year. So you're a great resource. I mean, I can see where you could be. People could be referring to you quite often with these specialties that you have. I'll leave this with the teaser of we're gonna. If you want to know what she's going to talk about, show up. So that's how you.
the plan. I know you're not doing much. It's Friday morning, like right before the weekend.
Right. And don't forget, we have food there. You don't need to worry about all that stuff. Just show up and we'll take care of you. And we just have such interesting trainings. And don't forget, you need to be a member of camp, and then a member. And then if you're not a member, there's a guest fee when you come to the door. Anyway, I look forward to introducing you on Friday because that's my privilege as president. So now that I know about you, I feel like I can, do that and get up there, and so I look forward to meeting you. And thank you for doing this interview.
Yes, thank you for having me on, and I look forward to seeing you all this Friday. I will take good care of you, I promise.
Well, great. We look forward to that. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.